Three, two, one,
jingle! Happy time has just begun. Brother, sister, smart, dumb, fun. Yeah!
I don't care what anybody says, Anne. Wait, I wait for the beat drop. There it goes. You are a talented dancer in all of your white man's overbite glory.
Well, you know, I got it. What can I say? I took ballet for 11 years.
You did. You made it for 11 years. I only made it for 3. I had to go 3. I went the absolute minimum. Okay, I got to take this music out. Ooh, and it's out. Yeah, so it's not that I didn't like ballet. I did like ballet. It's just not what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be playing baseball, not doing ballet. So that was the price. The price of baseball was 3 years of ballet, so I could get my trophy.
There you go. Get your trophy, your participation trophy. I participated for 3 years. I kept going because I was like, yeah, this is fun. And I like the tutus.
See, that was the worst part for me.
Oh,
they did not fit right, and they felt scratchy. They were uncomfortable, and frankly, I thought I looked stupid the whole time. So
I thought you looked darling, but I thought I looked amazing in a tutu. I should be able to wear a tutu all the time. God, I wish I could have. You know, nowadays, kids, little girls that want to wear tutus, or little boys, kids get to wear whatever they want. And I see kids all the time in like dress-up clothes and tutus, and I was like, oh, I wish I could have done that when I was little. Mom would never have let us go out in public in our dress-up clothes or tutus.
No, the standards for dress are very different now than they were. And, you know, like in our household, you didn't leave the house. I'm like, in anything that wasn't Cynthia Brothers approved, you know, I mean, jeans were the lowest standard of what you could go out in.
Yeah.
So God forbid you ever leave the house in your sweatpants. That was a no.
Oh man, no. So that was my job in the house, was to make sure that Jenny walked out in an appropriate attire for church. Find your sister something to wear.
Yeah, I wish I could say that wasn't true, but it was 100% true. But, you know, what are you going to do? Nothing. Well, you let your sister, I ate your food, and you dressed me, and that worked out. We had that sort of mutualism going. So both of us benefit. So here we are, and it is Sunday. We're doing the early edition of the show today. For a number of reasons. A, you originally had plans for this evening. B, there is football this afternoon. C, some of that football is the Lions. We'll see how that goes. You know, this is kind of a big deal for people that enjoy the Lions, such as myself, who have been suffering for many years. The Lions have a home playoff game for the first time in 32 years. And really, I just want them to win this one game, just this one game. I don't need them to win the Super Bowl. I don't even need them to win a second playoff game. I just want them to win one home playoff game, just this one time. It would just be really great.
Is that so much to ask?
Apparently it is. Apparently, when we're talking about the Detroit Lions, it's a lot to ask. So,
come on, professional football boys.
Yes.
Do something positive. I mean, you get paid enough money.
Sporting.
I want to get paid that much money and not win games.
Oh, well, then you should just be the Atlanta Falcons.
I guess that's funny.
It is. Or the Carolina Panthers. Also funny.
But I do like a nice panther. I think panthers are cool. Not the football animals. Like I would vote for them if I was watching it. So you don't vote
for the Panthers. Panthers for president.
Did I call in and vote? How many times do I call in?
No, and it doesn't work like American Idol. Okay, you don't become Super Bowl champion by voting. Sorry.
Well, that seems lame. At
least it is totally lame.
25% of their score should come from votes. That would total. Come on, I'm thinking outside the box here.
You know, I think that the NBA is going to have to go to that because people are starting to kind of hate the NBA again because it's boring. So maybe that would perk up the NBA. That if you could vote for your team, maybe that would help. You know, maybe. I don't know.
I might watch a game and see what happens.
Very good. No, the NFL is still popular because gambling. In fact, I was watching the broadcast last night. It was Kansas City and the Dolphins. And it was so funny because like the first half hour was just betting guys talking about what you should be betting on. And I'm like, this is gross. It grossed me out. So I went outside and started shoveling. I'm like, this is grossing me out. I'm going to go shovel.
Dang.
Yeah.
Shovel betting, guys. Shoveling.
I'm like, I'll just shovel.
At least I know that I've burned some calories when I'm done.
Yeah, wow. It was just like, wow, this is what we've become. We've just become a nation of gamblers and scrollers because, yeah. Okay, so you can't beat them, join them. That's all I say. But hey, so here we are on a Sunday, and it's really cold outside. For those of you that have poked your head outside, we here we are in Michigan. It is about a degree outside, so I think over there we're on the other side of the state, and you guys are at like 5 degrees.
We hit our high for the day, 5 degrees Fahrenheit, -13 wind chill factor. So yeah, we're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave.
I will say this about living for a number of years in northwestern Wisconsin is that 0 degrees or -1, it's really, I'm like, oh, that's not a big deal. It's almost above zero. When I think of those couple of winters that we had where literally woke up one morning and looked at my phone and the air temperature, not the wind chill, the air temperature was 36 degrees below zero. That's when you're like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about. And I got to tell you, when you stand outside when it's -30, it changes you a little bit inside and out. You're like, 0 degrees, whatever. That's not cold.
-36. I'm like, oh, hey, look, the weather could kill me.
Yeah. So, and kill you so quickly. And it's just like everything is still, nothing moves in that. It's the weirdest sensation being out in that because I'm like, nothing is flying. The sun is out and it's beautiful and it's 36 degrees below zero and everything is just frozen fucking solid.
Nothing works.
Nothing works. There you go. So we thought it would be a good day to talk about something warm, like volcanoes. And so we're talking about today Iceland volcanoes and other cool geology stuff because A, it's cold outside and this is warm. And B, I just like to talk about geology stuff. So there you go. We're going to nerd out hard with that. But before we do, welcome back. If you're a new listener, here's the synopsis. The synopsis is we are Anne and Janice brothers. We are the brother sisters. We are in our 50s, which mean we've had our first colonoscopies. Yeah, that's right. We talk about smart stuff, dumb stuff, fun stuff, or any combination of the three. We are not cool or hip. And we know this because we really enjoyed the deep nap that comes with colonoscopies. Boy, I'll tell you, it is special.
Yeah, I
one
loved
minute.
I was like, I can feel myself falling asleep. Goodbye. Boom.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like 1 minute the nice people are talking to you, and then the next minute they're like, okay, go ahead and wake up. And you're like, what?
That was amazing. Can I get some of this stuff for home?
It is the dreamiest, dreamy sleep ever. Man, it's amazing. We are not sexy because the first thing we did after our colonoscopies was to eat, and oh so happily. What did you have, Anne, after your colonoscopy?
I had a creamy chicken and rice soup, and I had a breakfast sandwich, and then I had some pastry. It was delicious.
Joe and I went over to the Blue Dolphin and I had corned beef hash and eggs where they make the hash really super crispy. That was great. Right out of the can. Yeah. It's everything I wanted. So great. We are not an influencer podcast, so we do not know what's cool. If we did, we'd both have a complete set of every color of Stanley 40-ounce tumbler, and we'd have beaten up at least one person at Target to get the super cool pink new tumbler.
Oh.
So,
all right. Yeah. I'm after this, you know where I'm heading.
Target to get you a pink. I don't think they have anymore. I think they sold out immediately. And you did have to beat up. You had to either A, sprint to get it, or B, beat up somebody else to get your pink Stanley Starbucks pink tumbler. I think. Yeah.
I think I'm just going to stay and watch sports betting. I think I'll just do that.
Perfect. So you've decided shoveling better than sports betting better than chasing down your Stanley tumbler. Okay.
Totally.
Cool.
100%.
Okay. I understand. We've been told that we are good to listen to while portioning your bulk meat from Costco for freezing. That's right. That's from Tracy Larson over there in beautiful scenic Dresser, Wisconsin. She texted me after our show last week to tell me that it was a good show and that she enjoyed listening to us while she was portioning her bulk meat. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do, baby. That's what we do. We take your mundane tasks and we make them less mundane by talking about mundane things
in a funny way.
In a funny way, and I'll tell you what, though, I've been there. I've been to Costco and I bought the bulk meat, and you portion it, you put it in your little freezer bags and you save it for later. It's awesome. So yeah, if you're portioning your bulk meat, we're perfect to listen to. So there you go.
That is not a euphemism.
It's not. It's like, that's the best part of
we've watched too much Hims and Her commercials on Hulu, so now everything is a
euphemism. That is everything's a euphemism for boners. Yep, packing your meat, portioning your meat. Meeting your meat. So
portioning your bulk meat.
Sharing your bulk meat. See, this is not a PG, G or PG-13 podcast. That we don't get super explicit. We do swear and we talk about naughty things like bulk meat.
Bulk meat. Never going to stop being funny.
No, it's never going to stop being funny because we're immature. We're gonna continue to say things like balls and bulk meat and think it's hilarious. Okay.
I don't think we're immature, Jenny. I just think we're easily amused.
Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair. You can find us on our new website, on Spotify, the YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. Please follow, like, subscribe us. Tell your friends about us, or if you don't like our podcast, tell your enemies about us. Okay.
Either way, we don't care.
We don't care. Just, go ahead and give us a like, something like that. All right. So one of the things that we do each week is we start off our week by talking about something either smart, dumb, or fun. Anne, start us off.
Jenny, I did something so fucking smart. I had to write it in capital letters. SMART, exclamation point, exclamation point, excla-fucking-mation point. I finished the book. I know. The Brontes, Wild Geniuses of the Moors, The Story of a Literary Family by Juliet Barker. Now, if you're not familiar with the Brontes, perhaps you're familiar with the novel Jane Eyre or the novel Wuthering Heights. So those were two of the Bronte sisters. Emily wrote Wuthering Heights. Charlotte wrote Jane Eyre, but the whole family was a literary family. They had published poetry. Their youngest sister, Anne, published several novels. Their father was a writer. Anyway, I saw the movie a couple years ago, the To Walk Invisibly, which was about basically about the three youngest Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne. And I thought, I should learn more about the Bronte family. I read Wuthering Heights and I read Jane Eyre, years ago. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a book about them. So I found the premier book about the Bronte family. I ordered it used online. So when it came in, I didn't realize it was almost 1,000 pages.
Holy shit. Look at that thing.
I know, right? 900.
It literally looks like a cinder block. You could
979 pages, not including the pictures.
Wow, I did not realize there was that much to know about the Bronte family.
Okay. Well, the Brontes, they were writers. They were writing as children. They were each, writing these sagas when they were children. And Charlotte wrote hundreds and hundreds of letters to people, and they all saved them. So there is a lot to know, a ton to know about the Brontes. And I read the entire book. When I got it, I was like, is this am I this interested? But I did. I read it. I finished it. Makes me smarter.
As you're sitting there talking about this book you read, and you're sitting there talking about the fact that the young Bronte sisters all wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And here's my sister who reads and reads and reads. I caught my students watching YouTube when they were supposed to be working last week. And do you know what they were watching?
What?
They were watching Japanese kids eat stuff. So I'm just going to put it out there that maybe some of my students are not spending their time writing thousands of letters or books or anything by the time they were done being teenagers. Just saying.
Yeah. And the thing is, all the Brontes, the one that lived the longest was Charlotte Bronte. She died when she was 39.
She died when she was 39?
Yeah. And
she lived long?
I'm sorry? And she lived the longest. Her father outlived the whole family. There was 6 siblings. Their mom died when she was 36, and 5 of her children died before they reached the age of 36. And Charlotte made it to 39. And by the time she died, she would have been considered as famous as like J.K. Rowling is considered now.
What did they die of?
5 of them died of consumption, and Charlotte died of complications due to pregnancy.
Well, there you go. That makes perfect sense because everybody died when they were. Yeah, and then again, it goes back to that stunning statistic from the book Deadliest Enemy, that the average lifespan of the average American at the turn of the 20th century was like 40. I'm like, oh, that's right. You forget that because we all live so damn long now. But man, that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Know that.
Yeah. So they were all prolific writers, and that's why they can have a book about the family that's almost 1,000 pages long, because they left a ton of written words. And like with Jane Austen, when she died, her family burned almost all of her letters and journals that she had written and gotten to people. They burned almost everything because they wanted her legacy to be her novels, not herself. But when Charlotte Bronte died, there was her husband was around, but nobody. He asked her friends to burn their letters, but nobody did. Nobody. The family didn't. She didn't. All of her, all of the manuscripts that she and her siblings wrote when they were children, all still existed.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Brothers. I learned so much just in the last 5 minutes about the Bronte sisters that I didn't know, and it's because you read the book and then told me about it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I was like, damn. So when you were like, what did you do this week? I'm like, I finished this fucking book.
Well, Anne, I have nothing smart to contribute to our discussion today. I'm simply going to talk about my dumb thing is Taylor Swift conspiracies. That's right. Apparently, because Taylor Swift, of course, was Times Person of the Year, which apparently is part of the left conspiracy for whatever reason. But anyway, apparently these are some of the conspiracy theories that are following Taylor Swift. Number one, she's a Pentagon psyop, otherwise known as a psychological operative, to get people to be leftist libtards. She's a Biden agent to steal the election because apparently during the 2022 midterm elections, she told people to vote. The next one is that she's gay, and that Travis Kelce is gay, and that she's his beard. Which, I'm like, maybe that could be. I don't know. The next conspiracy theory is that she's been hired by the Philadelphia Eagles to distract Travis Kelce, because if you remember, the Chiefs, who Travis Kelce plays for, defeated the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year. So the Eagles apparently are just fixated on Travis Kelce, so that they've hired her to distract him and make him play bad. Of course, he did play poorly last night. Taylor Swift was there, of course. It was also 7 degrees below, and whatever. The last one is that she wrote the mystery thriller Argylle, which they've just made a movie about. So apparently, while in all of her free time, she's also a mystery author. So,
well, that's the one I hope is true.
Totally.
I just think it's so funny. It was like, we can't, as a society, we like some women to be successful until we don't want them to be successful anymore. And then we blame them for a bunch of things. And I love the football stuff. I'm like, isn't football run by all men? And shouldn't a weak, hysterical woman not be able to take away anything from them because they're big, strong men? I'm like, dudes. If all you needed was a very pretty woman to distract your football people, why did you have to go with Taylor? Couldn't you just find any pretty woman? And then I would also think maybe they should become celibate while they're football players. Like, you know what? You can't have. Yeah, exactly. We're just going to put you in like a monastery. This is your football monastery. And then when your contract is done, go out. Oh, it'd be like the Brothers of the Black in Game of Thrones. You make a, you make this vow of being this football dude. All you do is football dude stuff. And then until you can't be a football dude anymore. And then you can go off into the world and live. But while you're being a football dude, that's all you can do. Since obviously they're so distracted by, shiny objects and girls. Oh, I can't play good football anymore, even though I'm a man. I'm supposed to be good at it. Sorry, I'm going on a rant.
I couldn't tell. No, and I was thinking that as I was reading these, as I was reading these conspiracy theories the other day, and I'm just like, oh my God, we just hate it when women are really successful. We just fucking hate it so much.
It just kills us. Oh my God, she's destroying football. I'm like, no, I think it's destroying itself.
God forbid that this woman just really just work her ass off and, build a career and build a following and worked hard to be an excellent entertainer. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, apparently, she's made it. She's made it to the big time because now she has, dozens of conspiracy theories that are following her everywhere. I didn't know what a psyop was until I read this. I'm like, psyop, what's that? Turns out it's a psychological operative for the Pentagon. So there.
I think she's doing much better just being Taylor Swift. She doesn't have to do anything for the government. That just seems like a dead end job.
Yeah, honestly, wow, you're a federal employee. Good job, Taylor.
Exactly. You get to retire in 20 years.
You get to retire in 20 years and you get national holidays off. Congratulations.
Exactly.
Like a
good pension. You get a good pension.
Yeah, good. Hey, why not? Hey, let's talk about volcanoes and stuff.
Okay.
So, anyway, this is the inspiration for this topic is that a few weeks ago, and I can't pronounce any of these, so I apologize to all the Icelandic folks out there because I'm going to slaughter the names of all of these monuments and cities. So, the eruption of the Fagradalsfjall volcano located on the Reykjanes Peninsula in Iceland. This happened back in December, about the 20th. This volcano started kicking up a fuss back in November. And actually, volcanologists are actually getting pretty good at figuring out a timeline for volcanic eruptions because they're starting to read the signals better. We can thank Mount St. Helens for that. That they're getting better of saying, "Hey, we're starting to see this activity. Maybe you should clear out." And so it was fairly active. It erupted on the 20th. A fissure opened up, and they had lots of cool magma and lava, and it threatened a couple of towns over on the Reykjavik side of Iceland. And it was fairly active for about 2 weeks. It's not so much anymore, and that's what volcanoes will do. They'll build up pressure, they'll release pressure with an eruption, and then they'll kind of go quiet for a while again, which is what this eruption has done. And so, anyway, I just thought this would be a good impetus for a little discussion on geology because I find it fascinating. That's why I got my undergrad degree. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Iceland, and then kind of talk a little bit about the driving forces behind the volcanoes there in Iceland. Iceland's one of the more volcanically active parts of the world. And the reason why is location, location, location. And if you're looking at this big map, you can see I've got a red circle around Iceland. Iceland sits kind of right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's well placed in terms of volcanic activity. And it's not the only place in the Atlantic that's volcanically active. It's just that particular spot is especially active. And you've had magma buildup on the bottom of the ocean, and eventually you have a nice island. But we'll talk about that. So, why location matters? Let's have a talk about Geology 101, otherwise known as Rocks for Jocks. And did you take Rocks for Jocks in college?
I took Rocks for Jocks when I was getting my teaching certificate. So yes, nice. I did. It was the first one I took on getting back into school because I had taken a few years off, and I was like, "Look at me! I'm taking a science class."
Good job. The reason it was called Rocks for Jocks is because as far as tangible sciences go, geology and the earth sciences at the very easiest levels are pretty tangible for everybody. There's not a ton of science in it. There's not a ton of difficult concepts. There's a lot of really great examples on the planet of this, and that's why usually when you take your earth, when you're taking your required courses, geology and earth science, the 100 levels of geology and earth science, pretty much everybody takes those. So now when you start getting into your upper level geology classes, it gets a little more complicated. And does it ever? Okay, so let's start with a discussion of Earth's interior, which I got to tell you is fairly complicated. We've never been inside of Earth. This is a misconception. The misconception is that we've actually been inside the Earth's crust. We've not. I think the most we've ever gotten, the farthest we've ever gotten, is about 15 to 20 miles in. Despite the movie, what the movie The Core would tell you. Oh, I forgot to add that to my bad list of movies. I'll do that later. The Core is one of the worst Earth science movies ever made. It's in my bottom 5 of worst of Earth science walkout movies. We've never been in there. We're probably never going to get in there because it is, to say the least, hostile. We know more about the moon than we do about Earth's interior because it's such a difficult and complicated system. this is what we do know. We know that the Earth's interior is separated into layers. Some of the layers are solid, some of them are liquid, some of them are kind of somewhere in between. And which is counter to what you would think. It's so hot. The temperature of increases as you go in because it's like a big thermos. At one time, this entire planet was molten material, and like anything, it cools from the outside in. And so, if you really think about it in terms of thermodynamics, yeah, eventually the Earth's interior could completely cool and be solid, but there's an awful lot of radioactive material in Earth's interior that's emitting so much energy that's probably not going to happen before the sun destroys our planet anyway. So when we've got probably about 4 to 5 billion years left as far as energy in the sun, so we'll probably be okay, at least for our lifetime. I'm not going to lose sleep going, the sun's going to nova tomorrow. It's probably not. All right, so when it comes to volcanoes, the magma is the source of pretty much all of this magma that's within the Earth's interior is the source for all geothermal activity on the entire planet. And it's all of that geothermal activity is happening in the areas below Earth's lithosphere, and the lithosphere is essentially the Earth's crust, which you are hanging out right now, and then the layer just below it, which is what we call the lithosphere, which is the upper part of the mantle, which is also solid. Isn't geology fun? Isn't it great? So great.
Woo!
I know. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. There it is. Okay. So this is the question that I often get is how do we know what's down there? If we've never been inside the Earth, how do we know that we have layers that are solid, liquid, or gas? And the answer is science, bitch. It comes down to what we've learned to do with the data that we gather. So earthquake science is essentially the reason that we have learned about the Earth's interior. Because when you have an earthquake, which is essentially the breaking of rock, large crustal plates, lithosphere, the breaking of the rock, energy is released. It's like if you break a stick, you feel that vibration in your hands. When something breaks, energy is released and it travels out in wave form. So as we learned to triangulate earthquake signals through waves that are released, what we started to figure out is scientists started to figure out that the data that they were getting wasn't necessarily what they expected. When waves travel through solid material, it travels at a particular rate depending on the density of that material or the type of material. And what they were seeing is that they would triangulate stations around the world when it came to gathering earthquake data. They weren't getting the data that they thought they were going to get. And through the study of this, what they learned is that there are different types of waves that are released when you have rock breaking or earthquakes. There's two main types of waves, body waves and surface waves. And so let's go ahead and talk about the two. Body waves are the types of earthquake waves that manage to find their way through the Earth's crust. There's P waves and there's S waves. So if you're looking at the little graphic that I have on the screen, I have a couple of GIFs there. The top GIF is a P wave, and those are what we call compression waves. And as you can see, they move like if you take a slinky and you have two ways you can move a slinky. You can just kind of pluck it, or you can kind of vibrate it so it goes up and down. When you pluck the slinky, you can still see the energy traveling back and forth, and that's what a P wave is. These can travel through solid rock. They can move through fluids like water. They are very fast. They're the faster of the two earthquake waves. On the other hand, you have S waves, and these are a type of longitudinal wave, and they go up and down. So you can see in that graphic how these waves travel up and down. This is what we think of when we think of a wave. They're slower. They don't move as efficiently through material. They move well through solids, but not through liquids or semi-liquids. They can move a little bit through them, but not as much. And as a result of that, you end up with something that looks like this. You end up with this graphic right here, which is essentially what we notice about earthquake waves as they move through the different layers of Earth. And it's kind of a mess because we know that there are layers that are solid because the P waves move through that material very quickly. The S waves can also move through it, but they move through it more slowly. When the overall nature of those layers changes, the behavior of the earthquakes waves will change as well. When it comes to liquids, those P waves will slow down and those S waves will stop going through it altogether and they'll deflect. And so you have these P wave shadow zones and these S wave shadow zones. And that's how scientists are trying to determine what's in there. Do they still know all of this for sure? No, they're making discoveries all the time about what they think is happening with Earth's interior. And, like I tell my students all the time, is that this is, 50 years ago, we didn't know any of this. Now we know this. Imagine what we'll know in another 50 years as our technology gets better, as we continue to research. Science is not a static practice. Science is not a thing. Science is a process. And this is how we learn to discover and make really great discoveries about the natural world. So all that to say this, the reason that we know about what's happening in Earth's interior is that we use seismic data in order to find it. And as we get more, as we get more technology and our practices get better, we'll have an even clearer idea of what's happening. What we do know for sure is that the inner core is solid, that the outer core is liquid, and that the lithosphere and the crust are solid, and that right underneath this is this mixture of solid and liquid materials. It's really hot down there. The core of the Earth is actually hotter than the surface of the sun, which is counter to what you'd think, because the Earth's interior is solid despite its tremendous temperatures, and that has everything to do with how much pressure is on Earth's interior. It's crazy hot down there. So much pressure. So, don't watch the core and think that anything in there is real. It's just a bad movie. God, it's so bad.
Bad movie. I watched it twice, hoping it would get better the second time. It didn't. Nope. I was like,
just gets dumber.
Nope, gets dumber. I was like, oh my God. It's got a good cast too.
It does, man. It has literally Academy Award winners. I'm like, what's her name is in that? What's his name is in that? Stanley Tucci's in it, and I can't think of her name.
I can't think of her name.
2 Oscars, for God's sake.
2 Oscars. God, what's her name? She was in Boys Don't Cry. And oh man, I cannot remember. Do you remember her name? Oh, Duncan says Hilary Swank. Thank you, Duncan.
Hilary Swank is in it. Aaron Eckhart is in it. Stanley Tucci's in it. I mean, literally, it's an all-star cast, and this movie sucks so hard.
So hard. Oh man.
I mean, even if it wasn't scientifically dumb, it's just everything about that movie is just dumb. So
it's just yeah. It's like
So all right. So anyway, moving on. Let's talk lithosphere, because that becomes the next most important part of this conversation. Because again, you guys, the conversation that we're still trying to talk about is why Iceland's location matters when it comes to it being volcanically active. I said earlier that Iceland is geologically active, and I'll show you a picture of just where the geologic hotspots are on the planet Earth. But we need to talk about the lithosphere. So the lithosphere is the combination of the Earth's crust, which is, if we're talking about thickness, about 30 kilometers thick. And then you have this larger solid layer just below, known as the lithosphere. And the lithosphere is now kind of lumped together. It's the crust and the upper mantle together. And it's a pretty big deal. So when we're talking about the lithosphere, I need you to think of it. I have a picture up here, and it's the Earth, and right next to it is a cracked egg, because that's what Earth's crust looks like. There's this misconception that Earth has this nice smooth crust, and we have these nice permanent continents. And as a result of that, everything's great. Everything's the same. Nothing has ever changed on this planet. And what we're seeing is that there's plenty of evidence to show that there's nothing further from the truth. So when you think of Earth's crust / lithosphere, because lithosphere is basically how I'll pretty much refer to all this moving forward, is that it's broken as if you had a cracked eggshell. And it's broken into these sections. We call these sections plates. There are 7 major plates and then another 8 smaller. They're not insignificant, but smaller. They're not major plates. So when it comes to the plates, and what we're looking at right now is we're looking at a plate map. So when you're looking at this map, each color represents a plate, and then you'll see a similar lighter color that shows you the continents. The continents are nothing more than the higher elevation of the plates. These are the part of the plates that are thicker and sit up above Earth's oceans. So when you look at North America is the thicker part of the much larger North American plate. Or Europe is, when you see that outline of Europe is that thicker part of what is called the Eurasian plate. So there's 7 big plates: the North American, Eurasian, Pacific, South American, African, Indo-Australian, and the Nazca plate. And some people don't consider it to be the Nazca plate to be a big deal. I do. It's a little bit smaller, but when you consider that you wouldn't have the Andes Mountains without the Nazca plate, it's a major plate. The others are the Juan de Fuca, the Antarctic, the Arabian, the Scotia, the Caribbean, the Cocos, and the Philippine. I'm very fond of the Juan de Fuca plate because I like saying it. Juan de Fuca. Say it. Trust me.
Wanda Fuca.
Fun.
Oh yeah,
See, isn't it fun?
Feels good. Yeah,
it feels good. It feels good, doesn't it? And the Wanda Fuca plate, as small as it is, it's no less significant because the Wanda Fuca plate is essentially the plate responsible when it converges with the North American plate of making the Cascade Mountains, which is another really great in terms of volcanic activity, really great volcanic activity there. Mount St. Helens is the result of the Wanda Fuca plate subducting underneath the North American plate. So, all right. So these plates are not stationary. So they're not just sitting there. These plates are in constant motion, and it has to do with the nature of what's happening underneath the lithosphere. Underneath the lithosphere, we essentially have the asthenosphere, which is not quite solid, not quite liquid. It's liquid enough to move, and as a result of that, you have these much hotter outer core and inner core that's causing these convection currents that work circularly. Convection is sprinkled all over the natural world. It's everywhere. It's in when you're making some soup. It's when clouds are forming, and it's the driving force behind what moves these lithospheric plates around. So these convection currents are essentially dragging the lithosphere with them, and it's what drives all of the plate movement that's happening all over the world. And it's totally cool. Look at the GIF I found. It's so cool. Convection is cool. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. All right, so these plates have relationships with each other. So these plates are constantly, they're crashing into each other, they're away from each other, they're sliding past each other, and they've been doing this for literally billions of years. This planet is approximately 4.5 billion years old, and we've had lithospheric plates as soon as this planet became cool enough to start forming a crust. So you can see from the graphic what's, from Pangea, this is essentially the last, say, I don't know, 250 to 300 million years as we've seen these plates move apart, and we see the continents now is where they are today. And all of this really started for me when I was in fourth grade, and I was in Mr. Whitbeck's class, and we were having spelling time, and I was bored because I was a good speller, and I was looking at the map of the world that was sitting in my fourth grade classroom, and I noticed, because I do like my puzzles. I noticed that if you look very carefully at South America and Africa, they fit together like a puzzle. And I was like, wait a second. I was so excited. I'm like, Mr. Whitbeck, if you look at the map really close, you can see that South America and Africa fit together like a puzzle. Is that cool? That must mean that they was to fit together at one time. And Mr. Whitbeck's like, not now, Jenny, it's spelling time. I was really put out. But eventually we got to it. And it turns out that other people had noticed that too. I didn't feel nearly as smart as I felt in that moment because I felt so smart.
Well, anyway, you were for a fourth grader.
I was very smart for a fourth grader. So anyway, these plates are crashing into each other, they're sliding past each other, or they are diverging away from each other. They've been doing that for a really long time. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of things that are happening at these plate boundaries because of these relationships. When plate boundaries are coming together, one plate will subduct underneath another. That plate will heat up, magma will form, magma will rise and form volcanoes. You have plates that are sliding past each other. The San Andreas Fault in California is a really great example of a transform fault where you have boundaries that are sliding past each other. Poor California. They have the unfortunate existence of being one state on two separate plates. That Los Angeles part is on the Pacific plate, and the San Francisco part is up there on the North American plate. So bummer, California. But you can see a trend here in this picture. This shows you that you're seeing two things in this picture. You're seeing where the plate boundaries are. Those are those yellow lines. That's where all my plate boundaries are. And then you're seeing this really great data. If it's a blue dot, it means it's earthquake activity. And if it's a red triangle, it means that's where we have volcanic activity. And as you can see, this earthquake activity and this volcanic activity all are happening where we have plate boundaries. It's not a coincidence that most of the activity that we have in terms of seismic activity or volcanic activity is happening right at plate boundaries, and it has to do with what is happening between those two plates at any given time. So what I have here, this purple circle, is Iceland. And what you have with Iceland, Iceland happens to be in a place where you have the Eurasian plate and the North American plate diverging away from each other. So, where you have divergence, it means that you're forming thin spots in the lithosphere or weak spots in the lithosphere where magma, because of the extreme pressure and heat that's being placed on magma, and because of those convection currents, it's trying to get up and out. And it just so happens where you have plates diverging, that's a great place for magma to rise, cool when it hits the ocean water, more magma rises, more cooling, more, and then you just slowly but surely build these mounds, and these mounds eventually pop up above the ocean surface, and they become islands like Iceland. Yay! So when I'm talking about location, 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 that's what I'm talking about. It's the fact that Iceland is situated between two separate plates who are diverging from each other. Yes, Anne, you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to point out that they say, buy property because they're not making any more of it. I'm like, they just made some right here. Look, there's more Iceland now there was than when it started.
That's right, Anne. Good observation. Yeah, you guys, it's the cool thing about plate tectonics is that it really is the ultimate recycling system. Because yes, you have new crust that's being made at a mid-ocean ridge, and specifically this is the mid-Atlantic ridge, which is the largest of the mid-ocean ridges. You're making new crust there all the time. And then you say to yourself, but wait a second, where's the old crust going? Well, the old crust is being subducted. So like if a great example of that is if we look at the Pacific plate. I don't know if you can see my little cursor here. The Pacific plate, right here, the Pacific plate is being subducted underneath the North American plate right here along the Aleutian Islands. This is an island arc, and this island arc is incredibly volcanically active. And so the Pacific plate is actually getting smaller. It's being subducted. So this, as you're destroying the Pacific plate, you're making more of the Eurasian and the North American plate. It really is the ultimate recycling system. And that's the way the rock cycle works. Rock is subducted, it melts back into magma, that magma rises, it erupts via a volcano, and now you have new rock. Rock is nothing more than frozen lava or frozen magma.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you talk about the fact that rocks are nothing more than ice, and people are like, "What?" Well, not like ice, but it's just frozen magma. That's all. It's just different stuff. Okay. Again, and that's the cool thing. That's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I've always wanted to go to Iceland. I've always wanted to be able to touch both plates, because there's little places where you can deep dive underwater, and you can literally put your hand on one plate, or you can put your hand on the North American plate, put your other hand on the Eurasian plate, which I think would be kind of cool. So anyway,
cool.
Hashtag life goals or whatever. Okay. So again, it's those two plates that are diverging. And again, you guys, divergence in the mid-Atlantic ridge, that's how Iceland has formed, is that Iceland is nothing more than a volcanic island that's been created by the divergence of two plates and the rising of magma. So, and that's what the cool thing is that's still a very geologically active area. Iceland's not done getting bigger. It will continue to grow and get bigger as long as that area is volcanically active. So, and it just so happens that if we look at this picture right here, you can see that the most active part of Iceland is in this sort of the south west side of Iceland, which is exactly where this volcano erupted in December. So it's not, they know where the active parts of Iceland are, and that's the part. So a question I get all the time is this how Hawaii formed? And the short answer is yes and no. Like all volcanic islands, it forms from the rising of magma, the cooling of magma, and then layers upon layers. The truth is, as far as tall mountains go, the island of Hawaii is technically the tallest mountain on the planet. And that's in the neighborhood of 40 some thousand feet. It's just that most of it is underwater. So, technically the highest mountain is Mount Everest, the highest point, but the tallest mountain is most of it's just underwater. So good job, Hawaii. High five to you. Mm-hmm. Hawaii forms a little bit differently. Iceland sits right on two plate boundaries. Hawaii is not on a plate boundary. It's what we call a hotspot, meaning that it's right. And if we look at Hawaii, I'm just going to go back to my map here. Here's Hawaii right here, right in the middle of the Pacific plate. You can see that little island arc right there. It's not on a plate boundary. It just so happens that Hawaii has the fortune or misfortune of being in a place where the Pacific plate is fairly weak. There's a large magma plume, putting immense heat and pressure on that particular part of the Pacific plate. And as a result of that, you have magma that's coming through at that point. And the reason that you have this series of little islands is that the plate is moving in one direction. The hotspot stays in the same place. It's not moving, but the plate is moving over the top of it. So Hawaii is actually excellent evidence of the movement of a plate over time, over millions of years. So that's fun. The other fun thing is that there's a hotspot right here in North America, and it's Yellowstone caldera. So if you really knew what you were walking around on when you were walking around on Yellowstone National Park, you probably wouldn't walk there. But
you might be
that's why
little nervous.
It is, because the evidence of massive eruptions of Yellowstone is well documented, and that there's always this like, will Yellowstone erupt again? And the short answer is it will. And they're like, is it overdue for a super volcanic eruption? Technically, it is, but when you're talking about geologic time, overdue means it could erupt tomorrow or it could erupt 10,000 years from now, because geologic time works so differently than human time, which is your lifetime is maybe 85 years, and you're talking about geologic time and you're throwing around 1,000 years or 10,000 years or a billion years around like it's no big deal. It makes you feel a little bit insignificant, and that's what I've always loved about geology, is that it really does makes you think about your own insignificance. Astronomy does that, and geology does that as well. I can remember one of my students, I was talking about, we were looking at galaxies and the fact that there are in our own galaxy there are like 200 billion stars, and that in the universe there's probably 200 billion galaxies. And I can remember just the look on this kid's face after we got done watching this video, and he's like, Miss Brothers, I feel so insignificant. And I was like, yeah. You are.
Your first existential crisis. You're welcome.
Yeah, I literally gave this kid an existential crisis at 14. I'm like, oh, sorry about that, man. Usually I try to do that for high school kids, but you're just ahead of the game. You're a deep thinker,
Yeah, exactly. Good job.
You got your existential crisis card earlier than most. So, huzzah.
So watch some Asian kids eat some food and you'll feel better.
I know. I'm like, why are you guys watching this? They're like, oh, it's so satisfying. I'm like, how?
Do you know what that word means? Do you know what satisfying means?
Anyway. Yeah. So, some kids are deep thinkers and some kids watch other kids eat food on YouTube. So there you go. Yes, that is a thing. All right. So anyway, so yes, Hawaii is volcanically formed as well. It forms through slightly different processes. Ultimately, the process is magma rises and comes to the surface, and there's different volcanoes. There are shield volcanoes, there's cinder cones, there's composite cones, and there are, just depends on what you're erupting, how it's being erupted. The Hawaiian volcanoes are massive shield volcanoes. Mount St. Helens is a composite cone, so they have these alternate eruptions between violent eruptions or these little lava flow eruptions. It just depends on what happens, what's coming up at the time. So, all right. So before we sign off on these votes, so now you know what's going on with Iceland. Now you know, at least at the most 100 level, what's going on with volcanic activity and plate tectonics and stuff like that. Is there more? Oh, yes, there's definitely more, but I don't want to get too nerdy. So, and I had to go with some volcanoes in entertainment because it all comes back to that for me. So here's a list of some of the best and worst volcano entertainment. So if you found this discussion fascinating, and why wouldn't you? And you want to know more about volcanoes, or if you just want to be entertained by volcanic stuff, and I forgot to put the book list on here. I should have totally put the book list. Really, the only book you need to read that's volcano related is Devolution, because by Max Brooks, because it encompasses both Bigfoot and volcanoes, and it's like, I don't even know.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's so great. It's okay.
Yeah. So I have a best side and a worst side, and I'm going to start with the worst side because, as you can see from the best side, most of those are documentaries. Pretty much everything that's ever been made by Hollywood that has to do with volcanoes is terrible. And we'll start with the worst of the worst, which is Volcano from 1997 with Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Heche, which is a dog of a movie.
Sorry, I just had to laugh.
Bad.
I haven't thought about that movie since you just mentioned it.
Yeah, because it's that bad. It's ridiculous. Then the next one that's almost as equally bad, but just slightly elevated, is Dante's Peak,
which is funny because that is so terrible.
It is. It's also a terrible movie somehow. And it's so funny because Hollywood does this thing where they release similar movies in the same year. So like Armageddon and
Deep Impact.
Deep Impact. And there was Twister, and some other tornado movie came out, but none of us remember it because we only remember Twister. God, what were some of the other ones? They did this in the 90s where they would have these competing movies, but so you had Volcano and Dante's Peak came out in the same year. And Dante's Peak is actually a significantly better movie, which is weird because they're both terrible, especially the scene where they're driving over the lava in the truck and they save the dog. And at the end, when the, pyroclastic cloud, somehow doesn't kill them. Yeah.
Somehow it doesn't.
Yeah. So those are probably the worst.
Fire and love about that.
Yes. Oh man, no kidding. And then of course we have 2012, which ironically came out in 2009, not 2012, which of all of that, 2012 is at the very bottom of my Earth Science walkout list. It's the worst of the worst. And then there's a couple of other dogs. When Time Ran Out, which is one of the very last. So if you remember the 1970s, the 1970s was all about the disaster movie. You had Earthquake, you had the airport movies, you had Towering Inferno. Well, When Time Ran Out was probably one of the last of that genre of disaster movies. It was Paul Newman, who was, looking old and tired at that point. And again, just a ridiculous movie. Joe versus the Volcano, which was stupid. And then, of course, Pompeii, which is a fairly recent Earth Science walkout. I can't think of the name. Oh, it was, I can't think of the name of it. One of the Andersons. It wasn't Wes Anderson. It was the other one, Paul Anderson, with Kit Harington, who was trying to capitalize on his Game of Thrones fame. So that's your worst of list. And of course, I forgot to add the core to that movie. You can add the core because that's sort of an Earth's interior volcano. The Earth's magnetic field is stopping because the inner core has stopped spinning because the outer core is stopped moving. So we're going to go in and restart the movement of the outer core so we can get the inner core going again, so we can somehow get Earth's magnetic field going again.
Yeah. It's like, weren't they going to do that with a nuclear bomb or something?
Yes, they were. They're going to do it through a series of nuclear explosions after taking their super unobtainium shelled thing through the stuff to get to the center of the Earth.
Just you saying it makes me tired.
That's right. Once you say it out loud, you're like, oh, that's dumb. Okay, yeah, it is. Okay, so as far as the best, there are some, on the other side of the coin, there are some really great, mostly documentaries that are fantastic volcano movies, with the first one being Fire of Love, which is a 2022 documentary. It's about the French scientists. They were a married couple that spent years going right into the heart of volcanoes for volcano study, and it finally caught up with them. They were caught in a pyroclastic eruption, or pyroclastic cloud, a number of years ago, and they were killed. So it's sort of their story, their love of volcanoes, and unfortunately about their untimely death. The next movie is Into the Inferno, which is a documentary from 2016. Fire Iceland, Perfect Planet Volcano. That's actually Perfect Planet's actually a series, and the one episode they did on volcanoes is great. Aliens in the Deep, which is excellent. That's actually a James Cameron documentary. When he was down there, doing all this stuff for Titanic, he actually got super interested in what was going down at the bottom of the Atlantic. And so he does a really excellent documentary about the geothermal vents and the life that what lives down there. You don't think about those depths as being life, but those areas, the geothermal vents in the bottom of the Atlantic, there's incredible life form down there. And so he basically did a documentary about what's happening down by those vents, and it's completely fascinating. Netflix did a documentary it's called The Volcano, The Rescue from Wakari, which is a
good movie.
It is very good. It's super compelling and just so sad. And it's a reminder that, these are not tourist attractions. Volcanoes are dynamic and dangerous. And it is a reminder of how indifferent it comes to what's the mechanisms of this planet. They are completely indifferent to anything, and this is just Earth being Earth. And this documentary is on Netflix. It's very good. I highly recommend it. You won't, once you start watching it, you will not stop. You can't stop watching that. And then finally, as far as fiction goes, Return of the King.
Wow.
I know. And like Mount Doom, hello, the whole scene with the volcano where they're destroying the ring. I love that. It's amazing. And I'm sorry to say, Frodo and Sam would have been super dead. That's okay.
That's okay. I know when they were walking, there was like, because I really had to go to the bathroom by then, and I'd already gone to the bathroom twice because it was a really long movie. And I was like, oh my God, they'd be so dead. When will this movie be over? I have to pee.
Yeah, so like they destroy the ring, and then there's like another half hour of movie, and everybody by the end is like, it's like you think it's gonna over, and then they go to the new scene, and you could just hear everybody in the theater going like, "Oh,
come on, come on already, you're killing me."
And then they get back to Hobbiton, you're like, Hobbiton, and then you're like, "Oh, come on, man!" And then they have to go to the Grey Havens, and like, "Oh, really?" And then he has to come back, and you're like, "Oh, come on, Sam, just get home." Yeah, I know. So. Anyway, that's pretty much everything you need to know about volcanoes and Iceland. Not really, but just something fun to talk about. I haven't really done anything smart for the brother sister, so I needed to do something smart. I just needed to get it off my chest. So I've done it. Now I can go back to talking about Taylor Swift. So
good job, Jenny Brothers. Good job.
Yeah. High fiving myself. Sneak peek next week. So I've done my smart thing for this week. Now it's going to be Anne's turn. So we are quickly coming up towards the end of January. I know, which hardly seems possible. We are nearly halfway through January already. Thank goodness. Mm-hmm. And Anne is going to start helping you get ready to get your garden on for 2024. It is not too early to start planning your garden. Tell us why, Anne.
Well, if you're like me, your seed catalogs are here, and you need to start thinking about what seeds you got to order, because if you don't get the ones that you want, they will be gone. Seeds are a commodity. Remember that. They only make so many. And when they're gone, they don't have any more until next year. So if there's something you really want, you really have to get it now. You have to get your seeds now. And you may want to start with like certain plants. I'm like, it's a good idea to order them now. You won't get them until May, but at least your name is on them. So yeah, you got to start thinking about what you gonna do. Plus, it helps keep you warmer, I think.
I think it helps you plan for the hopefulness that is spring.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I need some hopefulness right now. I was like looking outside today. I was like, oh, this would be a good turkey vulture day if it wasn't -5.
You want to know something? I saw a turkey vulture 10 days ago.
No way. Crazy.
I had to look twice. We were driving back Battle Creek. We had gone to Battle Creek to go to Horrocks.
Jenny, that's where I saw the last ones I saw in December were also in Battle Creek. I wonder what Battle Creek has. They have a big garbage dump there or something?
I don't know, but I saw this big bird, and I just assumed it was a bald eagle. I'm like, that's a big bird. It must be a bald eagle, because there wouldn't be any turkey vultures. And then as it came down towards the road, I'm like, dang, that's a turkey vulture. Look at that. And it was during my Christmas break. So I'm like, what is he doing here? I don't think he's here anymore.
I don't think he is. I think he was, but yeah, because I was coming back from Kalamazoo, and I stopped at Horrocks, and I was like, oh my God, I saw like a half a dozen turkey vultures. And I want to say, maybe it wasn't December. It was definitely late November, maybe early December. It might've been the same weekend where we went to Costco together. So I think that was the weekend. Okay. And I was like counting all these turkey vultures. I'm like, what is going on in Battle Creek that there's still so many turkey vultures here?
Exactly.
More nerding.
Yep.
Bird nerding instead of biology nerding, bird nerding.
Yep. This is your public service reminder that you can support the Brothers Sisters for free. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give us money unless you want to. You can just simply like us, share us on the Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, or the YouTube. That's all we ask. And again, if you're like, I can't stand the show, then go ahead and let your enemies know that they should subscribe and follow and watch our show. So yeah, again, you can do that with all of those things. And hey, if you want to subscribe, or if you want a sticker, we'll send you a sticker. So for subscribing and liking and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, there you go. All right. That is officially this week's show.
This week's good. Good job, Penny. Under an hour. Great job.
I know.
We nerded out hard. Excited. We learned. You reminded me several things, because I haven't taught earth science, and I haven't been in teaching for 10 years now. So I was like, oh, it's been a long time. It's like, ask me anatomy questions about muscle. I know lots of muscle stuff right now, but my geology is rusty. So thank you for that.
That's right. I get
that reminder.
I get geology. Not a problem. Hey, I'm going to play some our favorite sitcom music. No, is it?
Yeah, I love the sitcom. It's like, hey, it's the Jenny and Ann sitcom.
That's right. We're sitting in the same seat. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, you guys, thank you for watching this week or listening or whatever you did in order to, hopefully, if you're bulk packing your meat, that this was a good way for you to spend the hour.
Bulk
pack that meat. Bulk meat. So we will see you guys soon. We'll talk gardening next week. Same time, same place. Well, near the same time, but definitely the same. And go ahead and sign your off.
All right. Bye, everybody. You guys have a great week.
Peace. Signing you off as well. Peace.